and welcome to another episode of Exploring Imperator Rome. My name is Corine TimesnewRoman Gerritsen, and for today's video we'll have another look at Carthage, the perfect adversary of the Romans. We'll have a look at the missions, at religion, and I'll let my laptop run for 7 hours straight to find out how the AI handles Punic wars. So without further ado, let's get into it. As you might remember from last time, I chose as my own personal mission to beat the Romans, but this time I'll choose one of the other available ones. We can choose from 3 different missions. The first one is Aftermath of the Revolution, and it tells us that Bomilcar's treachery made Carthage unstable. So what does history tell us about this mission? Bomilcar was actually a Carthaginian general who lost to Agathocles, who ruled in Sicily. But why was he treacherous? Well, he tried to seize tyrannical power for himself. And this is what one of our sources tells about Bomilcar. Such despair was felt by the Carthaginians that, had not a mutiny occurred under the troops of Agathocles, Bomilcar, the Carthaginian general, would have gone over to him with his army. For this treachery he was nailed to a cross by the Carthaginians in the middle of the Forum, that the place which had formerly been the distinguished scene of his honors might also bear testimony to his punishment. So for this mission you basically try to stabilize Carthage once again. Secondly, there is an end to the Sicilian Warfare, and it tells us Sicily has long been a battleground between different Greek factions, particularly the people of Syracuse and ourselves. As mentioned in my previous video, Carthage had a lot of wars with Syracuse. There is no doubt in my mind that this would be high on their priority list, and Agathocles, the Sicilian tyrant, would indeed be alive at this time still. I think it's important to reflect on the word tyrant here. In the Cambridge Dictionary it is defined as a ruler who has unlimited power over other people and uses it unfairly and cruelly. And you might get some examples in mind. However, the word tyrant is used abundantly in ancient texts, and it does not have the same connotation. The Greek term meant an absolute sovereign who came to power without constitutional right, but the word has also a neutral connotation during the archaic and early classical periods. Some authors still used it negatively, but a lot of others used it in a way more neutral way. Thirdly, there is the Aegis of Africa. As our trade empire expands, with more and more colonies and ports abroad, our ambitions in Africa have withered. We must secure our footing at home, protect our backs from uprisings and raids by unruly tribes before we can once again turn our gaze across the sea. And this is a good moment to pay attention to the diplomatic world of Carthage. Most of our diplomatic relationships are tribunary subjects. Dexter Hoyos in his book rightfully speaks of an extensive area of influence rather than an actual empire. The tribunes had specific duties like payments, but were named not part of the Carthaginian Empire. It used to be the other way around. Before the 4th century, Carthage actually had to pay Libya. But their fortune changed and they could ask money and manpower from the other powers in Africa. But this very loose way of organization also made it susceptible to internal problems. Well, in the end I decided to go with the last one. It seemed like a good strategic option to first make sure you won't get stabbed in the back. And a bit later this option pops up, the Aegis of Africa. But how can we react? The shield that guards the realms of Africa. Now, I don't know how about you, but this sounds very familiar to me. The shield that guards the realms of man was a quite popular quote since a certain HBO show was on air since 2011. And that brings us to the religion of Carthage. As deity of war we have Tanit, and it tells us our lady goddess will watch over us in battle, ensuring our victory as we conquer our enemies. Unlike the Phoenician pantheon as a whole, Tanit is more of a local Carthaginian goddess. She plays an important role in our rites as both a lunar goddess as well as a war goddess. Tanit is so favorable that even some Libyans and Mauritanians have started worshipping her, following our example. She was the chief deity of ancient Carthage and she had quite some different associations. War, mother goddess, nurse, and even a symbol of fertility. She was very popular and different cultures also started venerating her. It is also her head that appeared on the majority of Carthaginian coinage, and it is hard to overstate her importance to the Carthaginian people. This is why it is not more than fitting for her to be our symbol on the flag. That's right, that is an abstract way of portraying Tanit. Deity of culture is Baal Karnim, the lord of Two Horns. He was venerated in an open-air sanctuary across the bay from Carthage. Baals were often worshipped in high places, at which a priest or prophet of the local Baal would offer various types of animal, vegetable or wine offerings. The Book of Kings describes the prophet of Baal engaged in shaman-like ecstatic dances. This Baal is a local variety of other Baals. As deity of economy we have Melkart. With greater riches come greater prosperity for our people, ensuring our security for the time being. This was the chief deity of Tyre and two of its colonies, Carthage and Gadir. He was also called the Tyrian Baal, and we also came across him in a video about Byblos. Then we have the deity of fertility, Baal Hamon. The young men of our nation will flock to our banners with the knowledge that Baal Hamon has blessed our wars. Baal Hamon was the supreme god of the Carthaginians and is generally identified by modern scholars either with the Northwest Semitic god El or Dagon, or the Greek Kronos. And we saw El already in Byblos. So in one form or the other, we've all seen these before. All these gods were attested by inscriptions, and in Carthage, it was very common for personal names to be derived from deities' names. I would like to draw some attention to the treasure of Tanit, lion-headed Tanit. It was meant to emphasize one aspect of her, in this case warmongering. This lion-headed is also known as an epithet, used in a big part of the ancient world to express what role a certain deity had in a specific place. The best known example is actually Pallas Athena. The goddess Athena here has the epithet Pallas, and although the origin of this epithet is a bit obscure, according to one of the fragments, Athena, after the battle between the giants and Olympian gods, used the skin of one of the defeated giants as a shield, and his name was Pallas, and this is why she would have taken on that epithet. Another example is Poseidon Erechtais. Erechtais was the name of an archaic king of Athens and the founder of the Polis, and in his role as a god, he got attached to Poseidon, so they were combined. A third example is that of Aphrodite Uranaya. This epithet was meant to signify her heavenly or spiritual nature and to distinguish her from purely physical lust. So in these examples you can see that the epithets actually emphasize one or more aspects of the deity. And as we saw last time in Decisions, we can also adopt the Megalithic Pantheon. It is very interesting that they included this, because we don't have that much information on Megalithic Berber religion, but they still try to incorporate them. Deities could be very local, and we probably lost more names of deities than have actually remained. So at the end of this video, I want to show you what happens when you let your game go for quite some time in observer mode. I knew it would take a lot longer than for my previous videos, since Carthage will not focus on Rome straight away. But in the end, that is what we want to see. What happens when the AI has to fight the Punic Wars? So I let the observer mode play for 7 hours straight, until my laptop was basically begging for mercy. Even with speeding it up and cutting out some less interesting parts, it will still take some time to get through. So I just want to say that in the end, Carthage is a pretty layered and nuanced state to play as. With extra DLC you can even enhance your game experience. I think they have chosen Carthage as elaborate state because they were the main adversaries of the Romans, and players would play Carthage as second after Rome. I even believe that is the reason why they got their color green, contrasting to red, which is of course the color of Rome. They did a good job at not mirroring Carthage at every point to the Romans, looking at you barbaric tribes, but ultimately that is what is most prevalent in our minds. So many books focus on the wars between Rome and Carthage, and maybe this too is a reason why this is one of the most difficult enemies for the Romans in this game. I want to point out just how absolutely lucky the Romans were. It was never a clear-cut case that they would beat the Carthaginians. And one of the most famous instances of this is Hannibal. Most of us know that he crossed the Alps on elephants, but how many of us know that he basically conquered all of Italy? One of the most famous battles of all of history is called the Battle of Kanai. It took place in 216 before Common Era, and Hannibal managed to bring a great defeat to the Romans, and his tactics would be studied throughout the centuries. An estimated 50 to 80,000 Romans died, and this makes the battle one of the most catastrophic defeats in the history of ancient Rome, and one of the bloodiest battles in all of human history in terms of the number of lives lost within a single day. He did not conquer Rome, however, since he decided it would be better to wait for reinforcements. This might have halted his momentum and gave the Romans some space. If he had decided differently, we might not have played Imperator Rome, but Imperator Carthage. This is actually the fastest that my editing program will let me speed up this footage. But I want to thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and feel free to watch the AI rewrite history in favor of the Carthaginians.